Yes, welcome to the No State Project for episode 84. Wow, actually up to 84 episodes now. Well, we've been doing it over almost 2 years now from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. And glad to be with you. Glad to be with you, especially since, traffic in Phoenix has not ever been good. And so it didn't look like I was going to probably have to pull my phone out and let everyone know I might be a bit late. But I actually got here just in time, was able to get everything set up and get going there. So we are going to be doing the big show for an hour commercial. I love that part of it. It's commercial free. There is no interruption, unless we have a tech issue, but so far, so good. These are the topics we're going to limit the show to. So I know we're going to get some claps here. We're going to be talking about anarchy, if you're for or against. We're going to talk about government abuse, again, if you're for or against. And if you are wanting to learn how to defend yourself in court. I will say that we only have an hour today. So as far as role-playing, we'll do that tomorrow if we have enough interest. So we did much better last week as far as the tech issue, that it worked pretty well on Discord, which was pretty good. So people are easily muted up. And so a moderator, like the dude, can moderate that and keep people muted up. So check that out. Contact me at FrankRizzo3 on Skype. And if we have enough interest, we'll go ahead and do that. But we will talk about the basics of how to effectively defend ourselves on this broadcast. But I typically will not be able to spend as much time doing role-playing. So, again, it's questions and concerns regarding that. And that's what the big show is going to be about from now on. I do have to thank the support of the show. Of course, Bill in New Hampshire, as being, I can't thank you enough, and Dan also. I do need to contact you guys and see how Dan is doing with his latest adventure in Legal Land. So hopefully that is going well, that there'll be a good report there. Also, for helping to support the show, Brent and Christopher. Had a great conversation with Christopher, who's on the show the last show, the Saturday broadcast, and going over what we can do, if anything, and about having to be able to hold prosecutors and judges accountable to any degree. And so we talked a lot about that, and so a lot of things you're familiar with here on the show. So I'm not going to cover that ground right now. There's other stuff to get into, but we know we can't sue judges. Even though that the law is that if the judge is acting without jurisdiction, not in excess of his jurisdiction, because if it's in excess of jurisdiction, there's absolute impierceable immunity, end of discussion. So there's nothing we can do there. But if we have evidence, and this, if we have evidence that shows, especially if we can, get the judge into a deposition, because we're going after the insurance, we're going after the county, we're not naming the judge yet, and we can get the judge into a deposition. If we can actually ask him, no, I didn't say we could shoot judges. What the hell are you talking about? No, holding them accountable. I was talking about piercing the immunity, like piercing the corporate veil. I wasn't talking about shooting. I don't think I used the word shoot. Sue. S-U-E. So if we can get the judge into a deposition, which is still something that remains to be seen, which would be nice. So if we have the judge's own words on their oath that there was no evidence from the prosecution to support their claim of jurisdiction, and we have it on the record now, self-authenticating, or evidence being that it's the judge's own words, then we might be successful in joining the judge as a party after the initial discovery is done. You just do a joinder. Again, we haven't done that yet. We are working to do that. So that is one way. One of the things I did not get to speak about on the show on Saturday I want to discuss here. Because what it does is it ties into this crap that's a couple of critics have done or criticized me for. So the basic criticism was that if I ask a police officer, or I ask a tax agent, I ask a bureaucrat, whatever, government agent, if I ask them if it's their position that if I'm physically in Arizona that the laws apply, they will say yes. When I then follow up, and I recommend we all do this, now when we follow up, if they're honest like Robert Diab, they'll say, well, there is no evidence. It's a blunt assertion of power. But most of the time what we'll get from them is they'll try to quote the law, or they'll just say, they'll turn around and, well, they'll quote the law. We'll correct them that that's not an answer to the question. It wasn't responsive, so objection non-responsive. And then the critics will there turn around and say, well, if you don't accept my answer and you just want a responsive answer, then you are arguing philosophy. Now, that's not true at all. If you're asking someone a question, you're not necessarily arguing philosophy. I guess in some context you could, but if you're asking somebody for evidence that proves that a written instrument that they say applies because you're physically in Arizona, that's not asking, you're asking for the evidence. See, the thing is, as I'll get into, when they say that their laws apply, they are arguing philosophy. At least if anyone's arguing philosophy, it's them. And I have a great example of that just happened, I guess it was Thursday or Friday, I forget which day. I know I did want to talk about it on the Saturday broadcast, so it was after the Wednesday. So it was more than likely something that it was Thursday. I'm not going to go and get my book to check. It's not important. So I was speaking to a deputy assessor. This is like the big guy, one of he's a deputy. I didn't get a chance to speak to the head assessor. That would be nice, but and to be honest, I was just trying to nail down which agency was responsible and had the authority to abate or vacate an erroneous assessment. I had no intention of speaking to the deputy regarding the issue of jurisdiction. It was a nice bonus because, like I mentioned before, the State Department two-step, that was what the Wednesday show I talked about. They kept on bouncing it around. And so I wanted to do a conference call with the assessor's office and the treasurer's office so that we could get it straight. Actually, it was the deputy treasurer. So I'm sorry. So I wanted to get them on the phone with the assessor's office, and so they could hash out which was the correct agency. Okay, instead of because now if they're confronting each other and they're both having conflicting positions on who is the right one, maybe they can hash something out, and we can save some time there. So I'm speaking to the deputy treasurer, and I run him through the same line of questioning because he's really interested to know how the assessment could possibly be wrong. Well, let's discuss it. So he agrees that if the property is physically in Arizona, the constitutional laws apply, and that gives them a right to assess a property tax. So I went through and I had asked him about the actual facts, and he wasn't able to do that. He accused me. Now, I'm only asking him for the facts. I know critics have a real problem with that. You're not really doing that. You're just making an accusation in the form of a question. But not, right. You could say that about anybody in a cross-examination. You could use that stupid line of reasoning to object and stop any cross-examination and say, well, obviously you don't think that your client is guilty. You think that the witness. So no, you're just you're just it's an accusation or it's just an argument in the form of a question. No, not really. So he accuses me of arguing philosophy. So I point out, I'm just asking you a question there. You said that the Constitution applied because the property was physically in Arizona. I'm asking you for the facts. I'm not making an argument. I don't have a counter argument at this point. I just want you to give me the facts. It's like the argument clinic, right? Well, if I'm going to argue with you, I have to take a contrary position. Yeah, but it's just not contradiction. No, it's not. Yes, it is. All right, so I ask him again. Sir, it's your position that just because the property is physically in Arizona, that your laws apply and give you jurisdiction. What facts? What's your proof? Where is your evidence? What evidence, if any, do you rely on? This guy actually comes out and does a 2-minute dissertation or narrative regarding, well, actually, sir, it goes back to, Thomas Paine and the social contract and about this and that and then the people and they do this and then they did that and did this and 2 minutes later I said, is that a? I said, you do. I didn't want to insult him and say you do realize Thomas Paine was not the philosopher responsible for the social contract theory. He would probably argue against it. But, that was Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. They were the ones that really came out with this thing about the social contract. And so what I was able to do is say, you realize you are arguing political philosophy right now instead of just answering a question. And it went right over his head. He insisted that I was my asking a question. This is what's so... My asking a question is arguing philosophy. But when he literally starts talking about the social contract theory, he's not arguing political philosophy. Wow, that is some mind-numbing stupidity there if you can't see the connection. So I asked him straight up, you really believe that there's evidence of a social contract? You based on what you've already told me, it seems to be that you do understand that all support for your organization is coerced. You've even said if you don't pay, they'll just take your stuff and sell it. And we already know about the prisons and whatnot. I said even the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, their official position, at least they were somewhat more closer to answering the question. Then they didn't just give political philosophy like you did. The official position for the Maricopa County, Bill Montgomery's office, and I have it on markstevens.net. I have a video of that. I have the actual email from the office. And their official position is on the evidence proving that the Constitution applies to me because I'm physically in Arizona is the other people that they put in prison. Now, that's a stupid answer, but it's not political philosophy. Bringing up the social contract, that is arguing political philosophy. And so he just didn't see, he didn't see that. So I had to ask him, do you think the facts square with your position that it's contractual? Isn't all support for the Arizona government, isn't it coerced? Or are you really going to make the argument that taxation is voluntary? Now, he wasn't going to make the argument that taxation was voluntary. Of course not. So now he's confronted with the actual facts and his so-called social contract theory, which was not an answer to my question. Is it really a social contract in its contractual nature when it's pay or go to jail? How do you square that? You square that away from me, of course. Of course, she doesn't have an answer to that. So that is part of the ongoing saga and the incredible irony of being accused of arguing political philosophy when I am just asking a question. And that's the thing, you might get hit with that. But when you make legal claims against somebody, when somebody asks you to prove that it's true, you don't. Good faith and due process does not allow you to get away with just saying, with answering the question and meeting your burden of proof by just saying, like a child, but you're arguing political philosophy. That's not true. And any half idiot should be able to see that when you're asking someone for the evidence that their claim is based on, that's not arguing. That's not arguing. Especially if you are in a court proceeding where the claims have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. They're not making necessarily philosophical claims and holding someone to their burden, because the burden is on the one who made the accusation, is not arguing political philosophy. It's not arguing. Now, obviously, asking questions can be considered part of an argument. Sure. But just asking someone to support their claim isn't necessarily an argument. And again, if that was the case, that just asking questions was literally the equivalent of arguing, then you could not have a cross-examination or even a direct examination, because that consists of asking questions. And so if you're in court or you're being challenged or you're being attacked by one of these people and they make a certain claim, all right, and don't assume, if you really think that their claim is that you're a corporation and that's why they want you to accept the corporate name and act as if you are the corporation, if you're going to do something that lacks in so much merit as that, and you just can't help yourself, don't make the assumption, ask them straight out. Why is the name in all caps? Is that because it's a separate from me? It's not the flesh and blood man, or is it a corporation? They'll roll their eyes and say, sir, please, that's stupid. Of course, of course it's not. We're not seeing you as a corporation. Get their position first. That's why I've said so many times on the show, get their position first. And then you can start attacking it. And as I've shown on the Call of Shames, which seems to be what everybody likes, the only videos that get any views on this damn channel, you can see how easy it is to destroy someone's argument there, or someone's political claim. And I definitely urge and recommend that you just use the Socratic method. You just ask questions to bring out contradictions and to see if somebody can support that position. So, and one of the things that, and look, bottom line, there is no evidence these laws apply to us or anybody else. They just say they do as if they do, and people act as if they do. People act as if that someone called a senator really is a senator, and that there's an office, a legitimate office, so-called, and that they actually represent people instead of ruling over them. It's like with kings. No, you're just talking about an antisocial parasite that has convinced enough people that he is actually different than them. That he has a moral right to rule other people. He has a moral right to do, just like any government, they have a moral right to do what would be immoral for you and I to do. And what an example of why, and all the things that are wrong with what we call government. Saudi Arabia. My gosh, this is the stuff of nightmares. The more that comes out of this, just the absolute worse it gets, the more information. And then to see the narcissist Cheeto, this Donald Trump, American jobs. Yeah, it's money for his cronies. Money to drop more bombs and destruction in Yemen. Oh my God, but what? And the lies. That's all they do is lie, and people eat it up. So here you've got another journalist, which journalist is one of the most dangerous, well, depending on where you are. Journalist is one of the most dangerous professions. And you look at something like Mexico, how many journalists have been killed because of the war, the drug trade. And thousands of journalists have been killed. Political opponents have been killed. I mean, it's a bloodbath down there. But here we've got where there's supposedly, there's videotape and there's supposed to be audio tape of a journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. I know I probably screwed that up, but Jamal Khashoggi going into the Saudi Arabian ambassador's building, all right, or the consul, whatever they're called, in Turkey. There's video of him going in, but there's no video of him coming out. Now, I'm not a Trump supporter by any stretch of the imagination, and I didn't support Hillary. I'm not that guy. But you remember, there was video of Vince Foster going into the White House. There's no video of him coming out. And as bad as things were for Vince Foster, what they did to this Jamal, who is again journalist, he was an American resident. He worked for the the Washington Post or the Washington Times. Okay, I think it was the Washington Post. And from the information that we're getting, and yeah, it could all be a big psyop. So, but spare me this, oh my gosh, you're believing what the mainstream media says? Didn't Trump tell you that what you're seeing and what you're hearing is not the truth? Didn't Trump say that? Huh? I doubt a lot of what's in the mainstream media, but not everything's a lie. And yeah, there can be a slant. And yeah, they keep things out. But a lot of sources on this one. Turns out, so first the Saudi Arabian government was the clown prince was saying that they had no knowledge of this. None. Had nothing to do with us. We don't know anything about it. We know nothing. Well, then it turns out more evidence comes out, and the Turkish officials are saying, no, there's audio. He's dead, and he was dismembered. So it turns out that there were 15 people that went to Turkey and went to the ambassador's office there, or the consul, and one of them, well, they were there for less than a day. That's a big thing. One of them was an autopsy specialist. I guess he was a doctor. And had the which we've heard before, that he had a bone saw, and so there's supposedly recording of him being dismembered. And what I heard this morning was he was still alive when they were dismembering him. Oh my gosh! Wow, I don't even like to think that things like that could actually happen. But seriously, but the thing is, look how women are treated. If a woman is raped in Saudi Arabia, the woman is the problem, not the rapist. The woman is the one that brought shame and dishonor on the family, so they wind up stoning her to death or killing her. This Saudi Arabia is a place where it is punishable by death to be a homosexual. Yeah. In 2018. Not the year 18, mind you. Not the year 1018. 2018. It is still a death penalty to be a homosexual. Women just this year were allowed to drive. And these fine people, they find people on both sides. And even Fox News. Trump lies at such a level. And so furiously about everything, that even Fox News, I'm sure they're going to be fired soon. If you see, he tweeted out that he had no business with Saudi Arabia, even though he's on video bragging about it. Oh, they give me $40, $50 million. Well, I'm not going to like them? And then he tweets that he doesn't. So someone at Fox News fact-checked them. A lot of business with Saudi Arabia. Not just a little bit. A lot of business. And so, with this supposed evidence, well, actually, what came out today, I saw a video of pictures where a cleaning crew went into the the consul there, and rooms have been repainted. Now, obviously, something happened there. It's not like Bill O'Reilly, Well, Jamal goes in, doesn't come out. Can't explain that. Yeah, you can. He's dead. He's murdered. And they do that regularly in Saudi Arabia. People who are peacefully protesting get put in prison and tortured. They are known for that. There was a purge with this latest clown prince. That's what governments do. Think the CIA is not responsible for assassinations and killing people? I don't think you could convince anybody from Central America of that. I don't think you can convince anybody from South America of that. If you go back enough, anybody who was knew what was going on in Vietnam. No, the CIA is well known. There have been whistleblowers. All governments carry out these assassinations. I mean, it's not just Russia. It's not just the Saudi Arabians. The Saudi Arabian government can just be more in your damn face about it. Because what they could do is they could wreak havoc on the economy, on the world economy, by pulling the plug on oil. So, at least that's the threat. And so the idea that you can carry out an assassination and kill a journalist who disagrees with your policies and the barbarism that is Saudi Arabia, you can get away with that. Why? Because like with Trump, everything is the best in the world. This is the biggest sale in world history. Because it's not just $110 billion in military armament. No, it's like $400 billion in other. It's the biggest deal in world history. He has the best brain, the best memory in all of history. He is the best president in all of history. He has the best people. And so they're going to sit back because they all engage in that. Nothing is going to happen. No one is going to get punished for a man who was butchered while he was alive, because that is what governments do. We didn't get a chance to see. I can hear people now. We didn't get a chance to see everything that the CIA and the United States military was doing in their black sites. A judge blocked most of those pictures and videos. It was a matter of national security. But you don't think that people were butchered in Abu Ghraib and other black sites with the CIA? I'm not so, It's just like with Brett Kavanaugh. He defended torture. He lied about it. Indefinite detention. So when they're going to confirm him, what does the White House do? Well, we got about 100,000 documents over here. We're not going to give it over. Why? And then a few weeks later, no one's paying attention to it anymore. Because, again, Donald Trump, narcissist, scumbag, calls a woman a horse face. And everyone seems to forget. You got a guy on the Supreme Court who's got an anger issue, who lies, who dodges questions. Regardless of any of those, and I'm not even taking into consideration any of the allegations of the women and the beer and whatnot. The man supports indefinite detention without charges. Supports the Patriot Act. Indefinite detention. He's okay with it. The man has one of the most pro-George Bush, administration laws and practices it's one of the highest, one of the biggest cheerleaders for the Bush administration. That's what governments do. That's why it's important to expose them when we can, and how it's easy to do. And I get people don't care. I understand. No one understands that better than me. Right? we should be getting the videos of them. We should be exposing them. Because even if it is just a few people in the audience, that may have a ripple effect. We should be showing these people and exposing them for the con men and the criminals that they are. It's not just Saudi Arabia. Yeah, Saudi Arabia is just an extreme example of that. There are other places where it's a death penalty to be a homosexual in 2018. But Saudi Arabia, boy, they're in real good. You know, that reminds me too. It's not just Donald Trump who was really cozy with the Saudi government, the prince or the king, whatever they're calling themselves. There are actually pictures, not Photoshop, George Bush holding hands, walking hand in hand with them. Not too many people as close to the Saudis as the Bush family, so please. What? Yeah, so, you know, it's really unfortunate. It doesn't matter how much evidence. This murder could be on videotape. This Crown Prince, whatever his name is, I forget, KSM or KBM, he could be on the videotape participating in it. What's going to be done? What is going to be done about it? Oh, that's right. Nothing. The same as Brett Kavanaugh, even though he supported indefinite detention as a judge, not just in the Bush administration, indefinite detention, supported the Patriot Act, that it's okay to have cops give warrants instead of judges. Cops. And anyone who tells you could go to jail if they disclose that to you. Oh, by the way, that guy, this cop with the FBI, this guy with the FBI that gave me a summons, and I'm not supposed to talk to you about it. Because I go to jail if I tell you. Oh, that's okay. It's all okay. The continual bombing of people, innocent people in the Middle East, none of it matters. You know why? Because at the end of the day, people don't care. Well, I should say not enough people care. Hopefully we're turning the tide on that. Let's get to the calls. We've got Travis in Pennsylvania. Travis, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I don't live in Saudi Arabia, so.
Well, there's always that.
As bad as things get, you can always say, well, at least I'm not a homosexual living in Saudi Arabia, or I'm not a woman living in Saudi Arabia.
Indeed. So I had a ticket due back in September, and I filed my motion to dismiss. I'm on the road a lot, so I don't get back, in a timely fashion to check my mail. So when I got back a couple weeks ago, I had the motions denied, but there was no further information given. So I'm just curious as to what's my responsibility after that.
All right, so just to be clear, you filed a motion to dismiss that you got from me. It's based on lack of evidence proving jurisdiction and a subject matter jurisdiction and personal, and there wasn't evidence of an essential element. All right, did the prosecution respond at all?
No, they just had the petitions denied at the bottom, stamped denied signature.
Okay, so you got that from the judge. There was no response from the prosecution, and you got just a one-word answer from the judge, and it just said denied.
Correct.
Did you get any response from the prosecution regarding the Brady request, the discovery?
No. See, I didn't file that. That was my bad. I thought that was filed once there was a court date set, so I missed that petition.
Well, have you filed it since?
I have not.
Okay, I would file that as soon as possible, and what you can do is you can file it, and I get a template for this. You can file a motion to reconsider the denial of the motion since it was arbitrary. It's one word. Now, I know people argue he's not required to, and I disagree with that. I think that I believe that due process does require that the judge have grounds, because due process certainly mandates that they do not rule arbitrarily. So if there is a absolute, well, if there is a known due process requirement that they not rule arbitrarily, to just use the word denied raises a strong presumption that there is no legitimate grounds, because he would have just laid it out. Judges actually do that, especially in serious cases. So I would file to reconsider based on the fact not appearing is presumed not to exist, and due process requires that the decisions be based on the facts and the law, and that doesn't appear here. Also, there's nothing in the record from the prosecution to be able to, to overcome the motion.
Okay. Someone that I had talked to recommended I called in because he thought there might be a bench warrant out since the month passed to make my plea. But in the meantime, I had petitioned for dismissal, and since it was denied, then he would think that there was a bench warrant out. What do you think about that?
Well, you can certainly call down there, or have someone call down there, or maybe call the police department and find out for sure if there's a bench warrant. If they have a docket online, you may be able to go there, and they may have it issued, under your case number. They may have it listed there that there's a warrant.
Okay. And if that's the case, do you still recommend the suggestion that you just made?
I would file a motion. I would file also a motion to quash the warrant. I would do the two of them. I would a motion to quash the warrant, and yes, I would want the motion to quash the warrant done I would like a hearing on that to be done telephonically, because the moment you walk into court, they're going to arrest you.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
That's all you had today?
That's it.
All right. Well, I wish you luck with that. So those are the two things. Well, three things if you have the warrant. But definitely find out, and keep in touch. Let me know, and make sure that someone has my contact information. So if you are picked up on the warrant and they're not going to let you out because you're a flight risk, then someone can get to me, and we can get a habeas corpus done for you.
All right, I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right, no problem. Appreciate the call. My name is Mark Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project right here on. It's just my YouTube channel today. So we'll see if we get any more calls. So to continue about this, about governments and exposing them for what they are, we need to start spending. I could do it on the phone, but if we could get more and actually just get people to, ask some questions and expose these people at their public meetings, would be great. Or even if you're just doing one of these, man on the street kind of things and asking people some questions. It really is pretty interesting, and it's fun if you can do it when you're starting to ask people why they believe what they believe. And when it comes to the belief that in government, boy, that, again, I'm not even going to use the words here, but there is a hate reserved for a different type of ethics that you don't get from government. I have done this for 20 years, and you can still have a maybe even just a heated discussion, but you can still have a good discussion regarding government abuse and anarchy. But certain other types of ethics bring out the absolute worst in people, and it just hello, it's Mr. Nasty, and it's not necessarily something you get face to face. People typically are a little bit more controlled, but the anonymity or being on social media is that tends to always bring out, or not always, that really tends to bring the worst out in people. And so it's not something that I'm interested in discussing publicly anymore. So I'm sure people will be, again, applauding that. But as far as exposing government types, I hate, well, I shouldn't say I hate, but it just seems that people are a hell of a lot more interested in, let's say, as far as anarchy, these cop watch type videos. And I got to be honest, and I know the two co-founders of Cop Block, it's really difficult to get through some of those videos. And I don't know if I've ever finished one or I've gone to they're just so cringy and boring. But those are the ones that generate the views. I had Scott Bales, as the chief judge of the Arizona Supreme Court, say that the evidence proving that the laws applied to me were the other people they put in prison, and no one watched it. But if you go and you question the cops on the street and do your Fourth Amendment or audit or something like that, people flock to those, and it's those videos don't really expose the system as invalid. All that you're doing there is maybe showing that you've got a few bad, you've got some bad cops or stupid cops, but you're not actually challenging the system itself, which is, I guess there's some of them out there, but it's kind of rare. And at least for me, I'd like to see more where we're actually challenging them. And again, you don't have to go to the police department like Robbie did, but it's much safer to do it on the phone with the police. But you can do it on the phone. But I think I like to do it in person because there's something about seeing the person's facial expression, their body language, and how they're responding to those questions. So you take somebody who is really, really insisting that they're right, and everyone else who doesn't believe them is a libtard, and asking them a few questions and watching their position completely collapse. I guess, so anyway, if you're going to do videos like that, and I encourage that, at least, do go to a city council meeting. Very low risk, and you get to have an audience, and you just have to ask a couple of questions, and everyone paying attention will be able to see just how flimsy their position is. And now you're opening up the door. Well, what do you do? How do we get there? Well, why don't we do something to maybe influence policy? This is why I talked about New Hampshire, which I'm hoping to get in touch with some free state participants and maybe start pushing to change policy. Do you have to have compulsory taxation? Imagine the stir that would create if you had a free state or somebody else that was in the government pushing. They'll make the news. You and I talking about it, no one gives a damn. The media is not going to talk to somebody about changing the coercive policy and not having all support be compulsory. But if you've got somebody on the inside who's a legislator, free state or not, they can get on the news and talk about that. And you could talk about, hey, there are services we want. We just don't want to have our lives destroyed for them to be provided. But we got to actually do something. So I'm going to do what I can to spend more time. It's tough, but at least in a couple phone calls a week where I can confront and maybe get a free stater, who's in the assembly that may actually be willing to go that and do that, to say, look, I want to introduce this, and it's going to take away the compulsory nature of taxation in New Hampshire. And maybe what comes with that, if a company decides that it's not compulsory, I'm not going to pay, they can have their corporate charter yanked, or some other non-violent, non-coercive method to keep people, to make sure that people still pay. And then you also have where you make it transparent. You can't hide the books. The books have to be public, not just public audit, but the books have to be public, so that every single dime could be accounted for. These are real things to get to a voluntary society. It's not the only part, but it's something. So I certainly would like to see something like that, a general, a push, a starting to get that going. And another thing, this is near and dear to me, put in there to actually change their law, stripping prosecutors and judges of their immunity. Yeah, I get it. You can't just pass a law. They'll just say it's not constitutional. They won't point to one single thing in their sacred writ, not one single line of their single writ that shows that they have to have immunity to do their job. Absolute immunity. So someone in New Hampshire putting forth an amendment to the New Hampshire Constitution to strip prosecutors and judges of their immunity. Yeah, level that playing field. Yeah. That would be something. That would cause a stir. Can you imagine the uproar? Again, I can say it and not only nobody cares. But if a member of the assembly is pushing this, you want to, and you can point out how the courts have ruled that there is an epidemic of prosecutorial misconduct. Why should they get away with that? Why should they get a slap on the wrist? They should have their immunity stripped from them. Imagine the uproar. Can you imagine the lobbying that would be done on judges' behalf to do something like that? To actually put them on the same level. Let them have qualified immunity like cops do. But absolute immunity? Abafungul. No one. That is no, you're talking about an oligarchy there. You're talking about, a privileged ruling class that can do whatever they want on the job. No. Strip them of the immunity. That will get there. They'll notice that. So anyway, we got a couple more calls I want to get to before we're totally out of time. We got Mike in Northern California. Mike, welcome back to the big show.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing today?
I'm hanging in there. There was something that just came to mind, and being that I did work for, what looks like you're talking on screen, and I'm not hearing it.
You may have a delay, but I'm not saying any. Don't even pay attention to what's on the screen. We're in real time right now.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
But as you know, I did work for a municipality, and some of the things that I heard was like, and everybody says my roads. Yeah, I need my roads.
Right.
And quite often, what would happen is they would budget so much money, to fill these potholes, that pothole, and, whatever. They go and mark it out and say, hey, you guys go out and do this. And by the time it got through all of the paperwork and the guys actually got out there to do it, guess what? They were out of money. It was already eaten up, through the system.
Yeah. Well, like nature abhors a vacuum and government abhors sitting money.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you. That's all.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's definitely my roads. That's a very common one. It's just like my proteins and my B12 on the other side, which I'm not going to talk about. But it is just an excuse. And here, this is what I'm talking about, though, Mike. I believe that we can have a lot of the same services that we need and that people want. And if all we did in the next few years, at least at the state and local level, was to get rid of the compulsory nature or the compulsory payment, wow, that would be an improvement. Because that is what you're doing is you're knocking the legs out of sweep the leg of the ruling class. That's why they're a ruling class and how they stay in power, because we're forced to pay. But you change that one single policy, that one thing, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we have to actually be responsible with the money that's collected.
Exactly, and that's where I was going to go next. In addition to what you just said, I was going to say that the bureaucracy is eating up so much money that the work cannot get done.
Yeah, and I think that is probably by design the way it works, because you go through. I'll use what I have from personal first-hand experience. It is really difficult to avoid potholes in a place like San Bernardino. And even if we just focused on one part of the waste, this is something that should be not a part of a voluntary society where we get rid of the ruling class and we don't have an actual government because it's not coercive. you have double dipping, which is at such levels. And we know that was one of the contributing factors to San Bernardino having to file for bankruptcy, because you have these people who stay on the job. They know the job. It's not a matter of their technical expertise on the job. That's the issue. But they retire and then they go right back to doing basically the same job as a consultant. And so they're drawing two salaries, and that's wrong. I don't want to hear.
I have personally experienced that. I mean, not for me, but I have seen people that have done that personally.
Yeah. And it should be, look, you're double dipping. No one's saying you can't go get another job once you retire. But to get this basically the same job and change title and that you're a consultant, that's something that came out recently with Trump stripping people of their security clearances because they then become consultants, and they make a lot of money doing that because they know the things. But it shouldn't be allowed. I personally think it's a dick move to have someone double dip like that. You don't retire and then do the same job. Yeah, your expertise is valuable, but to then still give you a pension at the same time, that I think, that I think is wrong, especially if you've got a publicly owned or a socially owned type of situation like the roads or let's say water. To come in and double dip like that, and when you have so many people doing it, all you're doing is needlessly drive. Look, either you stay on the job and do this and get paid once, or you can't be a consultant here. Go consult somewhere else. But to double dip right there in the local, like you've seen, and it's not like they're going to another municipality and doing that. They're doing it right there in San Bernardino, and they just retired from San Bernardino.
You know what? They're doing that everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah. And there was another thing, that kind of led me, that we were talking about that led me into this was that a lot of the people, and I don't know how they did it, okay, but a year or so before they retired, there was a thing that they called spiking your retirement. So, and I don't know all the ins and outs of that or how it happened, but or the technicalities of it, but somehow or another, they were able to spike their retirement to like 10 or 15% more than they were really entitled to.
Well, what they're doing is they're just getting more hours. They're getting more overtime, and so the retirement may be based on what their last year or two was. And so,
that could.
A common thing is
a possibility. I did not look into that very much.
Yeah, well, what they did was, and it doesn't mean that they're actually working those, let's say, 15 hours that day. We know from what happened recently in Baltimore with those cops that were acting. They were a literal gang, a criminal gang. In addition to killing people, planting guns, framing people and whatnot. They were also, and this is what really got the attention, though. I blame what really more so than framing people, because they were just poor black people that they don't count. They were embezzling from the police department. They were padding their hours. That's what really ticked. From what I remember, that's what really got their attention. Like, whoa, these guys are saying that they are places when they're not, and that's when they started putting tracking devices, GPSs on their cars, and that led to, oh my gosh, they're shaking drug dealers down. They're actually dealing drugs, but it was at embezzlement, and that's a part of probably every government of every level. The waste, the waste far exceeds the amount of money that would legitimately be needed to provide the service. I don't think anybody would be able to rationally argue against that.
Oh, yeah. And, that kind of brings me to another little story. Guy that kind of worked in a different department than I did. But the way things were set up was that, if we were working several hours, of overtime, they would buy us a meal. Okay. no problem with that. You know, I'm down with that. You know, you bring your lunch, you know, and you know, if you're going to work, you know, well over, you know, dinner time or whatever, you know, then yeah, they should buy you a meal. But there was a guy there that went into a grocery store and used his city card and bought like $30-40 worth of groceries and steaks and all kinds of stuff, and he did not get fired. I couldn't believe it.
That's not big time embezzlement. It's just like with IRS agents after the Restructuring Act of '98, where they've created the Office of the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, TIGTA. If you look online about these agents actually going to jail, I think 100% of them went to jail for embezzling from the IRS. They never go to jail for abusing people that they're stealing from. And I have given TIGTA absolute, beyond a reasonable doubt, evidence, solid, hardcore, direct evidence of multiple felonies. Example, Title 18, Section 1001, false statements, and then mail fraud. Absolute black letter, proof. They don't do anything with it. It has to be big time.
They do it to us, but if we try to do it to them, now it's a big deal.
Well, yeah, if they're ripping off the IRS and this United States government, they will prosecute them hard if it's enough money. But if they are making false statements, as they don't give against me, against you, we don't matter. We're the plebes. We don't matter. That's why I brought up the issue in Baltimore. When they ripped off the police department, that's what got them going. But when they were just ripping off and hurting and destroying the lives of poor people in Baltimore, please, we don't count to them. We don't. You see, being a real ruling class means you never have to give a damn. You just don't care. It's just like with Trump. Trump doesn't give a damn about anything but his name. That's it. So even taking a principled stand, American jobs. How about talking to like China and saying, I don't think that this is, and having ambassador and saying, I don't think this is a good idea to let them get away with that. This looks, but no, it's American jobs. And that's another one of the big things. And I've got to let you go on this. It would be catastrophic at this point to at least the United States economy and probably to parts of the world economy if they were to actually cut the defense budget in half. You know, and I think I know I'm starting something right now that I don't have time to finish, but I don't know. Maybe you guys can leave comments or you can have questions for the next show. Like, what am I talking about? Why would it be catastrophic if they cut the defense budget in half? Oh my gosh, entire towns would go under. It would be absolutely horrible. It would be far worse than what happened in 1929. I have to go. I appreciate
let me finish up with two more quick little things, if you don't mind, please.
You got to make it a minute.
Okay. I had two friends that were really Trump supporters, and I already forgot where I was going to go with that. Would it be possible for you to send me a link to the new system that you're going to go to?
Yes, you contact me on Skype, and we'll send you the Discord link.
That's kind of difficult for me. I'm not real Skype savvy.
That's the best I can do. You can email me and I'll email you, but you're going to have to learn how to. If you're not Skype savvy, there is a learning curve with Discord. It's a much better platform, much better. But there is a little bit more to know. So if you email me, I will. Email me for that and let me know what you need, and I'll send you the Discord link. Okay.
Okay. Oh, I remember now what I was going to say about Trump was that they, how does that happen?
It's okay. Mike,
I got it right there. All right.
I got to go. Bring it. Email me. Yeah. Email me or call.
Work, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And you can also call on the Saturday show. I'm sorry I can't get to everybody, but we will be doing the role playing this time tomorrow, 3 to 4 Pacific time. Contact me at Frank Rizzo 3 on Skype. I'll get you the Discord link, and we'll do the role playing on the show tomorrow. Well, this has been episode 84 of the No State Project here on my YouTube channel. Get subbed so that when we have other live shows that you know when we're going live. Again, I want to thank Bill and Dan in New Hampshire and Brent and Christopher for the support of the show. It is really appreciated. I'm glad to be able to continue doing the big show. And if I missed you, we will be live on the Saturday broadcast. Yeah, the Saturday broadcast is on LRN.FM and also streaming here live on my YouTube channel. So if we missed that, or if you had other questions or concerns, you want to talk about anarchy, whether you're pro or con, government abuse, and defending yourself against bureaucratic attacks, definitely give us a call. So till then, salud.